one of the things that I personally believe kind of omitted when talking about language learning and teaching is the attitudes of students. Because people do talk about motivation, sometimes they do mention habits as well, but what it all boils down to is the attitude and the responsibility that they do have to learn. And when they do, well, there will be no results at all.
Now, we were talking about 3 important words, okay? Now, and I'm going to hopefully share how the words talk in. We talked about 3 words: motivation, habit, and responsibility. Again, motivation, habit, and responsibility. Now, you might be asking yourself, Teacher Will, why is that important? Motivation, habit, and responsibility. Well, if you don't know what those words mean, let me start by giving you an example and using that word in a sentence. For those of you, the first word, motivation. Motivation is defined as the act or behaving in a certain way. A synonym is incentive, right? There is a motivation for learning English, right? So motivation means the act or behavior in learning or acting in a particular way. Habit. Habit is defined as a regular tendency or practice of doing something. Habit, a regular tendency or practice of doing something. Synonym would be a pattern or a routine. Now, here's the interesting question as it relates to English. And the question is, what is your habit of learning English? What is your motivation to learn English? Do you have a regular routine or habit or practice in learning English? And what is your motivation for learning English? For many of you on the call, it could be a different thing. Now, check out the live Instagram, because the teacher was asking me, hey, is there a relationship? What's the difference? Now, let me make an I statement. In my life, I have certain habits. I work, going to the gym, doing live Instagrams. That is a pattern or behavior. That's a pattern that I do, or a routine that I do. Going to work is a routine. Going to gym is a habit. Speaking English is a habit. Learning about different cultures is a habit, right? That's a routine. What is your routine in learning English? Do you have a habit, a routine, a pattern in learning English? That's a question. Second point, motivation. Motivation is acting in a particular way. Incentive. Here's the question. Can you be motivated? All right, you can receive motivation from others. Maybe by watching a live Instagram. Maybe by watching a movie. Maybe by looking on YouTube. Do you receive motivation by others? More importantly, do you receive motivation from yourself? And what is the relationship between motivation and habit? In my opinion, habit is something that is tangible, something that you can see. And motivation is an internal feeling or an emotion that you get. You can have motivation of yourself, or there is motivation to inspire others. So we talked about habit, routine, motivation, behavior. But let's talk about the R word. Responsibility. 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 Responsibility is defined as a state of mind or a fact having to do something. A synonym would be authority, duty, or control. Now you might be asking the question, how does that relate to English? What is your responsibility for learning English? What are you doing to learn English? You can have motivation. You can be motivated by yourself or motivated by others, which is an internal factor which causes you to do something. And you can have a habit or a routine in learning the English. But here is the question. Let me make an I statement. Teacher Will, do you take responsibility in your life for learning something new? Do you take responsibility for learning English? Do I take responsibility for accomplishing things in my life? Because motivation might be, there are times in my life that I might have motivation really up here, and other times the motivation might be down. And therefore there is a symbiotic relationship, I believe, between motivation and, hey, English by Maria, between motivation and habit. But ultimately, if you want to learn English, let me make it me. Hey, Teacher Will, if you want to do something new in your life, if you want to be the best teacher of English that you possibly be, if I want to change the face of English, do I take responsibility for myself and not wait for others to do it? I'm not mad, I am passionate, and I'm savage. And thank you, Wild World's official, for asking me the question. See, you know, the interesting thing about English is, if it applies, if it applies. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Here's what I'm going to make an I statement, and I have, 4 minutes left. Sometimes, followers, I think that it is necessary when you are learning English, you have to take responsibility for yourself. Now let me make an I statement. Anything that I've done in my life, or most things that I've done in my life, it has been easier to blame other people, my family, my friends, my loved ones. But sometimes I need to look in the mirror and ask myself, am I taking responsibility? Sometimes, followers, there are students that I might know, or that I might have had, or that I've heard from other students or other teachers, that oftentimes they lack motivation, they lack a habit, and they're not learning English, and they do not take the responsibility on themselves, but they might blame it on others or blame it on their teachers. If it applies, it applies. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So the question that I have for you is, in your life, when learning English, do you take responsibility in learning the language? Do you have motivation within and first for yourself? And do you have the proper habits, the routines that are going to help you learn your English goals? Now, you might say, hey, do you have responsibility in your life? That's your business. But today's topic that we want to go live on is, what are you doing to take responsibility for learning English yourself? You might be motivated or have motivation from me, or you might be inspired by me. And if that is the case, I'm very appreciative of that. But the question is, are you able and do you have motivation of self when you're not able to get on a live Instagram? Do you have the proper habits for you achieving your English goals?